I think that you got the wrong impression about me. I think in all fairness, I should explain to you exactly what it is that I do.
And now, coming live from my bedroom, your host and founder of Triple H Sports, Zach Harris, and joining him on the hotline is his man, David Sace. Dave, what's up? How'd you like that intro for you?
Yeah, man, brought me back to childhood there. Good shit.
You know, as soon as you hear that, like, I was cooking dinner earlier today, and for some reason, I'm like, you know what? I threw it on the soundbar, and all of a sudden I started getting hyped, so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get this into the show because, you know, when we're doing The Last Dance, we need to get hyped up, especially for the last 2 episodes. Holy cow. So, Capital Region-wise, guys, if you want to check us out, we're on Facebook at Triple H Sports Zone. Also, we got a podcast. It's on Spotify. It's on iHeart. It's on Apple Play. It's on Google Play. It's on all these different platforms, so make sure you check it out. I'm Zach. That's Dave. We're just trying to break down The Last Dance, episodes 5 and 6, and, you know, we talked about it a little bit. I was getting ready to watch it today. You watched it live on Sunday, and You're telling me, dude, you need to watch it, and you're not lying. Those were the 2 best episodes thus far, and it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah, they definitely left you hanging on and wanting more at the end of episode 6.
Yep,
that's for sure. I think they're really starting to get into the meat of the story.
Mm-hmm.
With the gambling and all the media towards it when it comes to Michael Jordan, which, you know, we can get into that if you want, but, I mean, the guy was gambling his own personal money on golf and card games. I have no idea what people saw wrong with that, but totally legal. And you know what really threw me off when they suggested that he was betting on Bulls games and throwing Bulls games. I'm like, Jordan throwing the ultimate winner, throwing Bulls games? I literally laughed out loud. It was so funny.
I was trying to explain to my wife, I was like, yeah, the difference between Jordan and everybody else is that, you know, when you piss him off, he's going to tell you, hey, I'm going to drop 40. He'll go out and drop 50.
Exactly.
So he's just that kind of guy. So the fact that they even thought that, and I never knew that was a thing, that, you know, they thought the Pete Rose aspect of him betting on himself or betting on the games, like, dude, like...
Yeah. I didn't know that part of it. I knew he had a gambling. I wouldn't even say it's a gambling problem. He's doing it legally. Like I said, it's his own money, and he's doing it on golf games with people he knows, and card games with his teammates on planes or in hotel rooms, wherever it is. You know, and he's doing it at casinos. I mean, there's nothing illegal about it. And like I said, I thought it was absolutely hilarious and kind of disgusting that they even considered Jordan would bet on basketball games, and even more disgusting that they would, you know, assume that he was throwing games. I was like, I'm thinking to myself, like, there's no way these people can be serious. Yeah. That just goes to show you how absolutely, you know, like two-faced the media is. You know, when you're on the rise, they're your friend, and when you hit the top, they try to bring you down.
I can't remember if it was David Aldridge or Ahmad Rashad said it best. If he's betting $10,000 on whatever it is, a game of golf or, you know, card game, that's like us going to the casino and spending $10. And that's exactly the way he put it. And you know what? By all means, that's exactly how it was. And I think the fact that, you know, he got into business doing shady business with people that he was gambling with, he didn't know. He clearly said that I didn't know these people the way that I thought I knew them, and, you know, I kind of strayed away from it once I realized who these people actually were. But by all means, he's a competitor. He's not a gambler. He's a competitor. He's gambling on himself, giving him an aspect of, you know, making him play even better. And we've talked about this multiple times where I told you, hey, even remember his Hall of Fame speech where he's calling out his high school coach and stuff. I think you saw more of that in episodes 5 and 6 in terms of the quote-unquote gambling problem. No, it's a competitive side of them.
Right.
And you either have exactly that or you don't.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what he said, too. He's like, they asked him if he felt he had a gambling problem. He said, no, I have a competitive problem. He said, I just like competition.
And I completely understand that because I'm the same exact way. Everything is a competition to me. Like, I'll be playing horse with my wife, and, obviously I can beat her 24/7 all day. But there's times where I try to let her win, to boost her confidence a little bit. Then she'll start getting into it. She'll start getting confident, talk shit, and next thing you know, I'm like, well, you shouldn't have talked shit. I'm trying to let you win. Now it's my game. See you later.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand where he's coming on that.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was in the locker room with security, betting $20 on shots with quarters if you could get it closest to the baseboard. Like, come on, who does that?
How great was it that Michael Jordan's like, oh, I'll give you 4 tries off of my one try. And the dude does it on the very first try, and he does the Jordan shrug. How great was that?
Yeah,
he just turns around and does the Jordan shrug like, I don't know. That was amazing.
I'm like, wow, this guy is really like betting $20 on tossing quarters.
Like that to me isn't.
But I mean, if you got it, then whatever. He had it like that, so I ain't mad at him.
And it wasn't like people talk about his trip to Atlantic City when they were playing the Knicks in the playoffs, and he even said, like, I talked to Phil. I told Phil exactly what was going to happen. It wasn't going to mess up my game. It was me getting away from everything. This was a way for him to escape from everything going on with the media harping like, oh, down 2-0. He's running into the bad boy Pistons again. Once again, physicality is getting the best out of him, blah, 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 da-da-da. Media at its finest, especially in New York. And then you got a team going for a three-peat when there wasn't very many teams that have ever done that. So, that was just his way of getting away. And it's not like he just decided to sneak out. He told Phil exactly what was going on and exactly when he was going to come home and all that other stuff. So I don't see an issue with it. As long as it wasn't like him staying out till 5 o'clock in the morning and then, they got a 1 o'clock tip-off. It wasn't like that. He was home by 1, 2 o'clock.
I found it funny how everyone knocked Jordan for going to the casino for a couple hours, but said absolutely nothing about Rodman disappearing for 4 days.
I know that because that's typical Rodman.
Another thing, and you said something about even at the time there were only I believe 2 teams that ever three-peated before the Bulls did it, and the Bulls did it twice.
Yep.
And that was over 20 years ago, and really there's been only one team to do it since then, and that's the Lakers from 2000 to 2002.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Warriors, as good as LeBron they had in their 5-year run there, they never three-peated.
Yep, exactly.
And it's happened 4 times now, I believe, and it's been only 3 teams. The Lakers have done it twice, the Bulls have done it twice, and the Celtics did it once, but they won 8 in a row. So it's happened 5 times with 3 different teams.
Yeah, but you got to remember that Celtics team was around when there was a handful of teams. Basically.
Yeah, like 8 teams. Yeah.
I don't know how many teams there exactly was because I'm not that big into history, but I know there wasn't as many as 30-something teams. You know, there wasn't 30+ teams. So.
No, if the Bulls would have won 8 in a row, that would have been a hell of a lot more impressive, if you ask me.
And the one thing that, I think we can, I mean, maybe I'll put it to rest. I don't think if you're going to put it to rest, but the fact that he and the team were so emotionally drained from that three-peat that he went ahead and retired. I think if he came back for that next season without retiring and without taking a step away, I honestly don't believe that they would have been able to accomplish what they did, especially if they run into the Knicks yet again, being that worn out physically and mentally and emotionally. And then you talked about the loss of his father as well, and I think that goes understated too. If he didn't step away from basketball, I honestly don't think that they win the 8 in a row that we've always said well, if Jordan never retired, he would have won 8 in a row. And I'm not going to be the guy to count Jordan out. So by all means, he can do anything he wants to do. He's always shown he's put his mind to where he wants it to be and goes and accomplishes it. But, looking from the outside in, that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. The fact that he might not have been able to win 8 in a row, but like I said, you can't count out Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, it's all you'll never know because it didn't happen. He retired.
Mm-hmm.
The gambling accusations and the media constantly bothering him and questioning him definitely took its toll on him and the team. I would say definitely more so on Jordan, but the team as well. I don't think it was a distraction really, just like an annoyance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the team had to answer questions for him all the time too.
Right, but they seemed to handle it pretty well, and they were mostly just laughing it off. Like they were more like, leave the guy alone. He's not doing anything illegal. David Stern, they showed an article in the paper where David Stern said himself, he sat and talked to Jordan and went through what the situation was, and he saw nothing wrong with it either, and it was basically,
I agree.
Swept under the rug, and a lot of idiots that don't know what they're talking about say, "Oh, Jordan didn't retire; he was suspended because of his gambling problems," which is totally untrue. But
somebody did throw that rumor out there that he was discreetly suspended for a year and a half or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah, no, not at all. It was all the media build up and all that distraction from that one season in particular, and then literally 2 weeks after they complete the three-peat, his father is brutally murdered. So that was basically the cherry on top. And
I wonder if they're going to get into that, or if they said Jordan doesn't have. Well, he had creative change over it, whatever they call it, but I guess he chose not to exercise his right to change any of the creative or narratives about this Last Dance. So I don't know if they're going to touch upon it, or if maybe that was the one suggestion Jordan said, can we please not touch upon that? I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on that. But
right.
It'd be nice to see them kind of get into it. And like you talked about, I think on one of our previous podcasts, is the fact that his dad loved baseball, and, he figured if he goes and plays for the White Sox affiliate that, he's kind of honoring his dad, and he's stepping away from the game, taking a mental break while also saying, you know what, this is for you, Father. So
yeah, and if it wasn't for his mother and father, he would have never even got a shoe deal because he wasn't even going to go visit Nike.
That was crazy. Before we get into that, though, I do want to mention one thing before I forget to say this, because the more and more I watch, so we've watched 6 episodes, 6 hours of The Last Dance, bouncing all around his career. We've seen a lot of Jerry Krause, and we've seen a lot of back and forth between Jordan and Krause and Pippen and Krause and all this other stuff. Then I started thinking LeBron came out with his new Space Jam logo, so this had me thinking, was Jerry Krause the general manager of the Monstars? Because the more and more I think about it, he looks exactly like him. He's got the double chin, the roundness going on, and just as a side note, it kind of, makes me picture that maybe he's putting the Monstars as, Jerry Krause's team, and it would have been funnier if the Monstars were made up of Tony Kukoc and Dan Marley and all them other guys. It would have been funnier if it was that way. But, think about it. The dude, the quote-unquote GM of the Monstars kind of reminds you of Jerry Krause, does it not?
A little bit, yeah. That's funny, too, because, they pointed them things out about how in the 92 Olympics, the Bulls drafted Kukoc, I believe, after the 92 season, and his country had some problems and civil wars, and I guess he was making a lot more money there too than he would have been making in the NBA. So he held off for a couple of years. But Pippen and Jordan basically took it upon themselves to basically abuse him in the Olympics because they knew Krause was a big fan of him. And the same thing with Marley in the finals when Jordan, basically knew that Dan Marley was going to be guarding him for most of the time. He was like, well, I knew that, Krause was a huge Dan Marley guy and loved him or whatever the case was. And Jordan, I actually just got done. I watched the whole series of that 93 finals this past weekend.
Wow.
And Jordan just absolutely abused Marley. So, yeah.
I forgot how good Charles Barkley was, though. Man, he looked
good. Barkley. You know what, though? Barkley, he had 2 games where he didn't play so well at all. Games 1, and I believe it was game 4, where Barkley didn't play he didn't play really well in game 6 neither. They actually had a rookie there, Richard Dumas. He was real young, really good, talented guy. He actually filled in for Sabalas because Sabalas got injured earlier in the playoffs.
Yep.
And but drugs eventually took over him, and we really never heard from him basically after that series. But he was a great young player for them. He stepped up big time in the games where Barkley was off. Kevin Johnson was real inconsistent. Marley played pretty well, big time 3-point shots. Danny Ainge played pretty well for him.
Yep.
But yeah, Barkley had a couple monster games, but he also had a couple games where he didn't play very well. And I don't know what it was with Barkley, but he always felt the need to grab a rebound and take off, and like he was a point guard trying to handle the ball, and he was just terrible at it.
I did notice that when I've watched highlight clips of him too. So
yeah,
definitely on the same level there. But to get more into the Tony Kukoc thing, where they literally just blocked him out and made him look really bad in front of Jerry Krause, because Jerry Krause made that trip. He traveled over there because not only did he want to see Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, but he wanted to see Tony Kukoc as well, because that was his guy, like we talked about. And the fact that Scottie and Michael Jordan both agreed, like, this is Jerry Krause's guy. Leave Tony Kukoc to either me or Scottie. We're handling this dude. And they legit handled him the first time. The second time he came back, whatever, they were talking about how he had 16.7 or 7 assists or whatever it was. They still got blown out by 30 points. I don't care.
Exactly, and that's a pretty average game for an NBA player anyway.
Yeah, so it wasn't like. He did bounce back mentally. I think that's what it showed more, was the mental back step or the jump forward. But, I think that kind of earned the respect of Jordan saying, all right, guess when this kid comes, we'll play with him. But when he came over to the Bulls, he was nothing more than a glorified role player. So it wasn't like anything came out of it.
No, and Kukoc's first year with the team was actually that 94-95 season when Jordan wasn't there. So he actually didn't play with Jordan for his first 2 years in the NBA, and then Jordan came back and then they won 72 games his first full year back, and then the rest is history. I also liked how, and in literally every episode, at some point or another, Jerry Krause is definitely getting clowned when they win the 92 championship and they're in they just beat Portland, and they're in the locker room and Jordan's smoking a cigar, and Krause goes, "Hey, Michael, is that a cigar?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, can I have one?" He goes, No smoking for you. It'll start your growth."
That's why I'm saying, I'm exactly thinking, because you take a look at the Monstars, you got the big dude sitting there smoking a cigar and stuff. Now I'm like, kind of wondering, was this Michael's master plan?
The head coach or whatever. Yeah. He does remind me of Jerry Krause. That's hilarious, man.
Oh my god. So yeah, definitely maybe a little shot there in Hollywood from MJ. He's always got that guy with his shoulder, that had a chip on his shoulder. So that might have been something that he wanted to do. I want to get more into the shoe deal aspect, because this is one of the arguments that I've made of Michael Jordan being the greatest, is the fact that, thanks to David Falk, he was really the first guy to globally icon himself. He became a national brand and a global brand, especially when he went over to the 94 or 92 Olympics. This kid, came in, he started doing Gatorade commercials, McDonald's commercials, Nike's commercials, to the point where you heard it. Even his own teammates are like, oh, man, we're sick of this. We don't want to see him on TV no more. Like, what the hell is up with this? Right. But one of the things that goes into him having that GOAT status is that the fact that he came into the league and he was able to recognize that he was going to be able to brand himself and didn't go with the typical Reebok. He went with Nike, thanks to his parents, like you stated earlier in the podcast. Hey, go listen. And Nike was really doing the whole track and running stuff and going on, and they're just a new up-and-coming company, and they have brand new technology that they offer to Michael Jordan, and his agent literally goes, well, you're talking about all this, why not name it Air Jordans? Because they were Air whatever they were, Air Track Stars or whatever, Air Jordan. And the guy's like, you know what, that has a ring to it. And then next thing you know, boom. You know, in the first year, they sold like over 100 million shoes or whatever. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is their goal for the first 3 years was to sell like 6 million or whatever it was, and he sold like 130 in the first year.
That's insane. Like, and that kind of started the whole Michael Jordan trend, being a brand and being that guy, the face of the NBA. And, you know, you take a look at him, and like I told you before, you know, you don't hear people say, I want to be like LeBron. I want to be like James Harden. No, they say, I want to be like Mike. And growing up, that was always my mantra, playing in the backyard by myself, or, you know, going and playing at one of the parks. I wanted to be like Mike, tongue out, everything.
Yeah, it was either Mike or Kobe.
Yep, exactly. You know, how many times have we shot from three or did a turnaround and we're like, Kobe? You know, you don't hear that with other guys.
I'm not going to lie. Every once in a while, if my shot was super on and I was definitely banging the threes, I'd be like, Reggie.
Oh, my God. You're
yeah, I would throw Reggie Miller in there every now and then.
You're one of the few. I don't even want to
talk about but it was definitely either Mike or Kobe.
It definitely was, and that's really what started this whole, you know, like Kobe said, there would be no 5 rings. There would be no Kobe that you know today if it wasn't for Michael Jordan. And you saw that in the All-Star game in the 98 season, right, where, you know, they're all... Who was it? It was Bird was in there. Magic Johnson was in there. Reggie Miller was in there. All these dudes that you take a look back on and you're like, oh, my God, that's a lot of talent in that locker room. Granted, not all of them suited up.
Antoine Walker.
Oh, my God. That's the first thing I noticed was Antoine Walker. I'm like, oh, my God. You want to talk about a guy with a gambling problem? You got a guy right there. But they're talking about this young dude that wants to take on the world one player at a time, and they were talking about Kobe. They were talking about this up-and-coming guy that had what it took, and, you know, Michael Jordan getting in his ear and really pushed him towards that, helped him out a lot, and he's even said that. So.
Yeah, because Mike definitely seen, you know, that Kobe was the next man up after he was gone. Mike definitely noticed that right off the rip.
And, you know, so Michael Jordan handed over that torch. You see other players, especially in today's game, where, you know, they don't want to hand over the torch. You see somebody say, oh, Steph Curry might be the best basketball player, and it's like, hell no, shut that down immediately. You know what I mean? Nobody ever wants to give anybody else credit, and the fact that...
they're all divas now.
Yeah, the fact that Michael Jordan, you realize nobody can touch me, but, you know, at some day I'm going to have to pass the torch over,
right.
And he chose not by choice, but, you know, by talent, and then recognizing talent, it became a choice. I'm going to pass the torch down to Kobe. So it was just cool to see that aspect of, you know, Reggie talking about it, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Antoine Walker, all these dudes just talking about how great he was, Patrick Ewing, all this stuff, you know, just talking about how Kobe was that next Jordan, that next one-on-one guy, and I'm going to crush it in, you know, typical Jordan fashion. He's like, all right, not in this All-Star game, young blood, doing the turnarounds on him. And, like, he would not give up, and that was great to see. I love that competitive side.
I also liked at the end of the game when Gary Payton came up to Jordan and was like, "Hey, I'll see you in the finals." And Jordan was like, "Well, I'll be there. I don't know about you though."
That's why Jordan's just
like,
on a different level.
Jordan, it was never like cocky to me. It was definitely all confidence. There was no cockiness because, like, when he spoke, he was really humble. You know what I mean? He never called himself the GOAT. He always gave credit where it was due.
Yep.
But he just knew. But I mean, he knew he was the man, no questions asked. But he would just never say it himself.
Baddest man in the face of the planet. You know, he just carried himself a different way. Like, you know, when you see other people lose, they're like, well, what more do you want me to do? Jordan, you know, he could score 30 and they lose, and he's like, oh, man, I got to score 40 next game. I can't let us lose. I got to do whatever it takes. You know, I'll lock down the next man, whatever. And, you know, you saw that. You saw him on the defensive end and stuff. I forget what game it was. Maybe it was against the Knicks where they were getting really physical. This man was diving into the stands for rebounds and stuff. You don't see that with star players today. Like, he put himself on the line, put himself out there, and it's just a different way to see the game, see it in a different light. And the physicality thing, once again, like, people talk about nowadays how, oh, back then it wasn't that physical. Today's players could play back then. Well, yeah, there were some teams that weren't that physical, but you had the Bad Boy Pistons, you had the Lakers, you had the Knicks, you had all these teams that played very physical, and they didn't really show it, but the Blazers were a pretty physical team as well. So, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
It was just.
Yeah, Jerome Kersey, Clifford Robertson, Buck Williams, Kevin Duckworth. Yeah, that whole front line they were definitely physical, man.
So I think they don't show enough of that, but we know it's there. We know the physicality's there. I like the shoe deal. I like that they went into the shoe deal. I like that how they showed, you know, because from the very beginning, Michael Jordan's talked about how his parents have really helped him through everything. And the fact that he talked about, okay, you might not like what they have to say, but you have to go hear it anyways. And I like that he listened to them. He got on a plane, and next thing you know, it was Nike and Jordan, and he ended up, you know, respecting him. And this is just the competitor side in him anyways, that when they won the 92 Olympics, he's covering the Reebok logo with the American flag. And what are you going to say? Take the American flag off? You know what I mean? Like, you're there for your country. So I thought that was a great job by him covering it the way he did cover it. And just the loyalty and the competition always comes out, no matter what. So that shows me right there, there's no gambling problem. There's a competition problem. That's what it is. He needs to be the best, whether it's Nike and his shoe deal and his clothing line and everything else, or I'm going to get a quarter closer to the baseboard than you are. Like, it goes everywhere. It goes everywhere. So I don't think there was a gambling problem. Clear as day, it didn't seem like a gambling problem. You know, it's not like he said, my wife's not leaving me. You know, I'm not selling my home. I'm not selling my championship rings. I'm not desperate. It's money that I have to spare, and it's the way I chose to spare it.
Yeah, exactly. That was like even on the team playing with card games, he'd be in the back with a couple of the guys playing, you know, $10,000 a hand, and he'd go up with Will Perdue and John Paxson where they're playing, you know, $1 a hand, and he'd ask to play, and Paxson's like, well, why do you want to play with us?
Yeah.
And Jordan told him, so that way I can say I got your money in my pocket.
That's just typical.
Everything was just a competition with him.
Exactly. So the fact that, you know, the media really got to him that much is insane. And
yeah, I mean, you know, but that's what the media does, man. You know, they try to paint an image that isn't true. You know, especially when someone's at their peak, they find anything to bring you down. That's what they do. It's never going to change.
Did you love the commercials of back in the day with Spike Lee and Michael Jordan? And it's like, it's got to be. Oh yeah,
I remember them. I remember them commercials clearly, man.
I remember those commercials. Like, those were.
Yeah, I remember them all. They missed one where him and Larry Bird were playing horse I think it was a McDonald's commercial. They didn't show that one.
It was a McDonald's commercial. I think it was like over a Big Mac or something stupid.
Yeah. Larry Bird shot it and went through the tunnel and whatever.
And then the one guy, the other guy's bouncing it off the rafters and everything. It was just crazy. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, they didn't show that one. I was looking for that one, but they never showed it. But I mean, you know, even the NBA on NBC and the opening theme song, it's just like, it's just nostalgia at its finest, man.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? I miss the NBA on NBC. I remember those days, man. Even you know, that lasted up until even like I think it was the mid 2000s. Maybe I think it was maybe after the 2006 season. They stopped doing it. Everything just went to the bigger networks, ESPN and, you know, TNT. You know, so now people without cable, people that, you know, aren't fortunate enough to have cable can't watch these games anymore. You know, it's just, they just made it into a money thing. It's more commercial now, just like everything else, really.
Yeah, just like everything else, it always comes down to money. Another thing that I noticed was the book that came out, the Jordan Rules. You know, I forgot about that book as well. So it's kind of, you know, this is nostalgia, but it's also bringing up things that are very good points. The fact that Jordan really had to deal with all this crap, even in '93. Like, dude, the dude's 9 years into the league. Like, any normal basketball player, like, if you're looking at Charles Barkley, if you're looking at Scottie Pippen, these dudes aren't thinking about retirement. But they don't have to deal with the mental aspect of everything that he's done. And they showed, like, when he was doing his one interview where he's talking about everybody wants to be like Mike for a day or maybe a week, but, you know, you're really not going to understand. You're not going to want to be Mike for a year. And you take a look at exactly what he's done. And some of the things he didn't have to do. He doesn't have to always talk to the media. There wasn't a forced policy back then as much as there is now. He doesn't have to sign autographs for people. He didn't have to do any of that stuff. But, you know, being the brand that he is, being the face of the NBA, he felt the pressure of having to do all that, and he did it willingly and never complained about it. And, you know, it got to him when the media tried to portray him, because he wasn't that I want to be like Mike guy that they tried to make him out to be in the commercials, and that people took away from it, and all of a sudden, oh, he's got a gambling problem. He's not this great guy after all. No, he's still the great guy. He's still, you know, hanging out with people that have serious illnesses before and after the game. He's still signing autographs for everybody on his way back to his hotel room. This man doesn't catch a break from the moment that he steps out of his hotel room all the way till he steps back into it. And I think, you know, with the media portraying it the way that they did is just, that's a lot of pressure for one person. And the one thing that and you can take the floor after this, but the one thing that I've seen on social media since then is, oh, Michael's mentally weak and he wouldn't be able to deal with today's game where you have the social media aspect. It's not that. It's different when you have a microphone in your face than a Twitter account that you can just deactivate. You know what I mean? It's just different level.
Yeah. Sounds like a bunch of bronzexuals.
It's just a different level.
Yeah, and speaking of that, you know, and then after, you know, when these episodes are over, Scott Van Pelt does ESPN and he gives you previews of the next 2 episodes coming up, and then you know, on the bottom of the screen there'll be a lot of like current NBA players, you know, stuff that they're tweeting about the episodes, and they never even played with Jordan. A lot of these, well, I would say none of them have really, because a lot of these guys came into the league like right after he retired, or, you know, a few years after. Yep. Dwayne Wade, Kevin Love, yep. You know, Kyrie Irving, they all chirped in, calling him hands down the GOAT. Kevin Love tweeted something about he's the alpha of all alphas, and I just want to point out one thing, and hate to bring his name up, but these are all guys that played with you know who. Mm-hmm. And they themselves are saying that Jordan is still the GOAT, so that goes to say a lot.
I was watching these last 2 episodes with my wife, and I pointed right at Michael Jordan, and I said, "You know what we call a guy like that? We call him the dog. Like, he's always getting after it. There's no end game with him. He's always getting after it. Like I told you earlier, like, if he tells you he's dropping 40, he's dropping 50 on you. Like, it's just that plain and simple. He was an alpha. He was the dog, a dog, and he was getting after it. And there's no changing his mind. Just an aspect that outside of Kobe, I don't really see in anybody else. Like, I thought maybe Kevin Durant might have had it in him, but he had it more with the Warriors than when he was with the Thunder. And part of that was Russell Westbrook not understanding the moment, but he does have a little bit of that killer mentality, but not nearly to the level that we saw with MJ and Kobe. I don't see that with, and I could be wrong, I don't see that with any other player. I don't see that at all.
Well, if I had to think of one guy, at least one guy in the league right now that has that killer mentality, I would say Damian Lillard. Nowhere near the same level, but he definitely has it. He's big shot. You know, when the game's on the line, you know, he's the guy that. Yeah, exactly. I kind of saw it earlier on with Westbrook a little bit, but not so much anymore. But yeah, I mean, Jordan and Kobe are you know,
they're
one
just
A
on a
and B.
different level. Yeah, they're just
exactly. No one's ever gonna, you know, have that kind of mentality. Jordan was the type. Even Kobe was the type of guy that would literally die on the basketball court if he had to.
Funny that you bring that up, how he was talking with Ahmad Rashad driving into the stadium, and he's talking about how, you know, 93, he's thinking about retirement because he wants to be that guy that steps away 2 years early than too late and somebody's trying to drag him off the court. And, you know, a lot of kids nowadays are like, I want to play until somebody tells me I can't. And, you know, it's best to leave the way you do. Like, Jordan is last year. I mean, granted, they weren't in the playoffs or making the playoffs with the Wizards, but, you know, he went out, he scored his 20 points, and he said it was he didn't say it, but, you know, he struggled to score 20 points in that game, in that season. He was like, you know what, it's my time, I'm done. And he left out on a 20-point per game note, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, you know, it's just a different level.
You know, he knew. I felt like, you know, when he came back and said he was going to play for the Wizards, I just, you know, I didn't think it was really the right thing for him to do because they weren't very good, and I didn't think, you know, he was going to make a difference and making them better. That last year they almost did make the playoffs, but they fell short. So, you know, I mean, it didn't really tarnish his image, you know, at all, if you ask me. But I think he, you know, could have went without. I don't think it was maybe the best decision, but it just goes to show you that, you know, he truly loved the game. And, you know, when the time came where he finally knew that for sure, you know, he didn't want to play or couldn't perform like he's used to doing, you know, it was time to go.
Now, the one last thing that I want to mention about episode 5 and 6, and there was so much that get into, but one of the things that I noticed was he was the original farewell tour king. Like we seen with Kobe and other players and Dwayne Wade and all these other guys. Like, you know, like it or not, he didn't even tell anybody he's stepping away after the 93 season. And he had a farewell tour. They talked about how, you know, what was it, Atlanta that he was in, and they sold out the whole arena, and they would have sold 15,000 more tickets.
Well, that was during the 97-98 season.
Oh, 97-98. So, you know, even before he said that he was going to step away, still, you know, he made it known that, you know, hey, I'm not going to play if Phil Jackson's not coming back, but he didn't really set out and say, hey, I'm retiring. It wasn't, those words never came out of his mouth. It was just, hey, if Phil Jackson's not coaching, I don't want to play.
Well, what he said was he's not playing for any other coach but Phil Jackson. So basically that's him saying, you know, I'm not going to be here either without him saying those actual words. You know what I mean? Because Phil Jackson for sure wasn't coming back to Chicago. And at that time, he wasn't going to another team because he wouldn't go to the Lakers for I think he was off for 2 years. Del Harris was in LA, and I remember Rodman playing about 18 games or something in '99 for the Lakers under Del Harris, and that was just a big mess. And then Phil Jackson stepped in and won 5 more chips. So he actually had 2 stints with the Lakers in the early 2000s and again in the late 2000s. But I mean, that was basically Jordan saying, if I'm not playing under Phil Jackson, then I'm not playing at all. So maybe if Phil would have went to another team right away, Jordan probably would have followed him. Who knows?
Now, do you think, and I try not to villainize Jerry Krause because he did such an outstanding job of putting this team together, taking the chance on guys like Dennis Rodman and Tony Kukoc and Bill Cartwright and all these other different players that really filled the needs to go around Michael Jordan. But if he doesn't tear this down, if he doesn't decide to be a money-hungry person that he is and wants to destroy the team a year too early instead of a year too late and sign Scottie Pippen to a big deal, do you see them winning a couple more rings after that? Like, do you see them moving on if Phil Jackson's back and Scotty's back and MJ's back? Do you see them winning another ring or 2 in a row?
The next year was the strike-shortened season, and the East wasn't very good. So I think Chicago probably could have got back to the finals that year. And, if it would have played out the same way with San Antonio making the finals and a young Duncan and David Robinson and that whole crew, that would have been pretty interesting.
Yep.
That would have been pretty interesting. That probably would have been their toughest finals matchup.
Just going back to some of the previous episodes where MJ was where they talked about they might trade Scottie Pippen in the final season that they all played for the Bulls, and he's like, no, don't take this away from me. If we lose, take it away. If we lose, I understand, but we're winning.
Yeah.
I wish that the whole team, including Jerry Krause, just stuck with that. All right, we're going to do this until we lose. When we lose, it's done. It's over with. We need to rebuild, and I need to get all the credit I can for rebuilding. Looking back on it now, how silly was it for Jerry Krause to step away from all this stuff? Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson, and Scottie Pippen overcame so much to get to the level of success that they achieved for it to just end on a three-peat. They didn't even get to miss the playoffs the next year or get knocked out in the Eastern Conference Finals. It literally ended as soon as that three-peat trophy was lifted. As soon as they did their celebration down Chicago, everybody knew it was over. So, such a bittersweet ending, but they ended on such a high note. How do you not go for another chance? It wasn't like these guys were 40 years old.
Well, Jordan was 35, would have been 36 the next year, and Pippen was, I think, 32. They weren't, old, but they weren't young guys. But I mean, they
won 60
games. They definitely had another year. I would say they had another 1 to 3 years in them for sure. Mm-hmm. But I mean,
it's hard to tell. It's always that what if game, but that's what me and you
had the Lakers. You had the Lakers and the Spurs on the up and up. They would. I mean, imagine if the 2000 Lakers played the 2000 Bulls instead of the 76ers in the finals. What that would have been like. You know what I mean? Shaq and Kobe versus Pippen and Jordan, and I doubt Rodman would have probably been there, but I mean. These are all just fantasies now, man. But I mean, it would have been interesting to see. That's for sure.
Do you think they would have?
But I mean, it just goes to show you the East wasn't very good after the Bulls broke up. You had the Knicks make the finals the next year as an 8 seed, and then Philadelphia made the finals the year after that, and they were, I think they were a 2 seed, but. They weren't, they won, I think, 54 games or something that year, which isn't terrible, but, and they beat Milwaukee the Milwaukee Bucks in the conference finals that year, and I think they were like a 6 seed or something. I don't know, but the East just, it wasn't very good for a short while there. I would say probably until 2003, 2004, when the Celtics got better and the Pistons started coming along, but there was a little drought there for 4 or 5 years where the East wasn't very good at all, which explains why the West was winning the finals.
Yeah, you take a look at after the Chicago Bulls, you had the Knicks, the Pacers, the Sixers, the Nets, the Pistons, the Heat. It was never the same team consistently the way it was. With the Chicago
and the Nets
Bulls
were making the finals, but they were barely winning 50 games a year. You know what I mean? I think they were like 48-34 and then 50-32, and they lost to San Antonio in 6 and got swept by the Lakers. So it's not like they were a great team.
Yeah, exactly. So just to give you a perspective.
And an Eastern team didn't win the finals after the Bulls won it in 98 until 2006 again, when the Miami Heat won it with Wade and Shaq. So, there was a good 8-year drought where the West was winning the finals every year.
Don't forget about the New Age Bad Boy Pistons. They won in 2004.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, that's right. They beat the Lakers in 2004. Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
There was a 6-year drought there where the East wasn't winning anything.
I mean, you take a look at the last 20 years, it really has been majority dominated by the West. Like, you had Golden State Warriors, you had the San Antonio Spurs, the Lakers, the Dallas Mavericks for that one-off year, So that's really what it was. It was the Lakers, the Spurs, and the Warriors that really have dominated the last 20 years. So, that just shows you, as the Bulls declined, so did the East, like you talked about, and it was really the chance for the West to come up, and you had teams like the Lakers, the Spurs, and the Warriors that eventually have taken over. So,
Warriors came much later on.
Obviously, much later on, but still in that 20-year stretch of after post-Jordan. So, it goes to show you how much the game changed after Jordan left, how weak the East got, and, not to take away from anybody's accomplishments for being able to make it to the championship however many years in a row. It was a different animal back then when you had the Bad Boy Pistons, when you had all these teams you had to play to get through the East to the championship. You know what I mean?
Right.
And as soon as the Bulls leave, it's just different.
Yeah, and when Jordan left in 98, man, I thought for sure, like, this is the time where, Reggie Miller and the Pacers are definitely going to get into the finals, a good amount for the next, 4 or 5, 6 years. And it just never happened, man. They couldn't. Indiana was always that one team that was always really good, really tough to eliminate, but they just couldn't. They just couldn't break through. Even when Jordan wasn't there, they made the finals one time, and they probably should have been in the finals 4 or 5 times, to be honest with you. Yep. But they just never were able to break through, man.
Now, what do you expect to see more in episodes 7 and 8?
Well, at the end of episode 6, they were just about ready to get into the playoff run that the Bulls had in their final year there. So they'll probably start off with the series against the Nets, which they swept those guys, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll probably get into that, and then and they're back and forth between that and the end of the 93 season when they first three-peated. So I expect them to get more into, Jordan's first retirement. Probably they might bring his dad up. They might not. Probably see some baseball clips of Jordan playing baseball and striking out a lot.
Yeah. They also showed Scottie Pippen and him doing his thing, and I remember
Yep, that's another thing. Yeah, because, the Bulls went 57-25 in the first year without Jordan, so they were a really good team, you know what I mean?
but
I think they were the
team that
second
makes
seed
it to
in
the championship. So
no, I think they were the second seed in the East behind the Knicks. So don't remember it, but I remember it clearly. It was a 7-game series against the Knicks in the conference semis, and I do believe that the Bulls had that game won, but the refs made a terrible call on Pippen. It's called the phantom call that he made on Patrick Ewing, but it was a total BS call, and I do think that cost the Bulls the game. I do think that the Bulls would have went on to beat Indiana as well and went on to face Houston that year, but that's another fantasy, and it never happened, so it's all in the past. But I do expect them to show that that first year without Jordan as well. And I mean, they were so great because they still had the same group of guys, all that experience, and then they had the Zen master coaching these guys. So even without Jordan, they played great. They were still a real solid team. So they'll get into all that, and
But you seen Scotty right before they ended the last episode. Scotty pointing to his shoe. He was wearing a Michael Jordan logo shoe,
come back,
and then doing a little comeback finger. So I liked how I exactly liked how it ended. It really did tease you for wanting more. And me and you talked about this off air before we turned the mics on. Is that these next 4 episodes, is it going to be enough? We're going to want to crave more. How are they going to be able to put all this together without us wanting more? And that just goes to show you how great it is, because they're giving us 10 hours and we're going to want more. So,
and I'm wondering if Jackie McMullen will. I wonder if they ever interviewed her, or if she had any part to do in this docuseries, because she actually covered. Yep. I think they were the Barons that he played for. Yeah, she actually covered Jordan's time down there as an analyst and interviewed him a lot and seen him a lot. And, she mentions how he was always happy to see her, and he would always ask her, they would always talk about the situation in Chicago. Like, Jordan always was paying attention even from afar. And she said that she always knew he was coming back, that he wasn't totally done with basketball. And then, sure enough, less than a year later, there he was back in better than ever with the number 45 at first, and then back to his original 23. They win 72 games and win their 4th championship and the first of what would be a second three-peat.
Now, we talked about earlier how we could play the what if game if they would have won 8 or 9 in a row. If he comes back at the beginning of the year instead of the middle of the year, do you think they beat the Orlando Magic and get into the championship, or how do you think you see that playing out? Because you don't take a year and a half off and just come back and expect to be in the greatest basketball shape. There's a difference between baseball shape and basketball shape.
Oh,
and,
definitely.
I think it would have been different if he came back at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, probably. That Orlando team was a handful, but I mean, they, even a lot of them players I've seen interviews before, a lot of the players knew that they weren't facing the same Jordan, because, he, like you said, he wasn't in that basketball shape. And then, it just so happened that the next year they'd see each other again in the same rounds, conference semifinals, and I believe the Bulls swept them. So, so who knows what would have happened if he would have came back in the beginning of the 94 to 95 season. Never know. But, I mean, that Magic team beat them, and then I think they beat the Knicks in the conference finals, and then they went on and got swept in the finals anyway. So,
yeah,
in all, it really didn't matter.
Mm-hmm. You take a look at, he came back for 17 games in that 94-95 season. So obviously it's not going to matter at all because we're playing the what-if game. But if he comes back for more than 17 games in the regular season, if he gets himself in shape, and you just talked about it, how much they
most likely would have been a totally different story.
Yeah. People forget how good that Orlando team, though, was with Shaq and
they were
and
good.
All them.
Dennis Scott and all them, Nick Anderson. Yeah, they were a good team.
They had a really good.
They had Horace Grant too. You know, they had Horace Grant, so they definitely had a good team. But one thing I do remember from that season when Jordan came back, he came back 17 games, and I believe it was his 5th game. He went to the Garden and dropped 55 on the Knicks.
Jesus, it just goes to show you. Just goes to show you how amazing it was.
Yeah. Well, you know, Jordan just got a kick out of abusing the Knicks. So he basically said it in episode 5 too. You know, where he knew it was gonna be his last game at the Garden. So he wore the original the Jordan 1s.
Yep.
And his feet were literally bleeding
by
the end of the game. But I think he scored like 43 in that game.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, he dropped 55 in that 5th game. Your
well,
memory
you know,
is
he
quite
grew up.
good.
He dropped 55 in that 5th game. He sure did. Oh yeah, I remember that. Wearing number 45.
Yep.
But you know, he grew up in North Carolina, but he was born in Brooklyn. So, you know, he always had that little place in his heart for, you know, going to New York and definitely abusing, I guess you would call it his birth town. So I think he got a kick out of it, really.
And that since then birthed the playing very well in the Mecca, because every time you see Kobe go there, LeBron go there, yep. Melo, when he wasn't playing for the Knicks, go there and have outstanding games. Like, it was just a place for visitors to go and dominate, because the Knicks weren't dominating there.
No, well, you know, it's a little different for, you know, I would say even for Kobe. I mean, the Knicks were a little better back when he was, you know, in his prime going there. But I mean, LeBron, when he goes there, he's playing a bunch of bums. So, yeah, you know, the Knicks have been pretty irrelevant for a while now. But, you know, they're not the Knicks that Michael Jordan was facing. That's for sure.
Man, I miss them Knicks. I need something excited during basketball season. I can't stand it. I have more fun watching Steph Curry than I do my own team. And the only reason I do is because, you know, not only does Steph Curry chuck threes, but they do play good team ball. They have aspects of the triangle that are implemented into it, right, but more dedicated to today's game. So I'm fascinating on watching what Steve Kerr does with that offense when he's got all his pieces healthy and everything, and he's got his big man that can pass in and out, and they really do run pieces of the triangle. So it is exciting to watch the Warriors, especially since the Knicks are complete garbage lately. Yeah. So,
and I'll tell you what, man, if we do have basketball, you know, a full season next year, the Warriors will certainly be back with a healthy Clay and Draymond, and then you know, Steph will be 100%, and you know, they got a top 5 pick, and you know, I've told you a million times, I really hope they go with Obi Toppin, because he'd be the perfect fit there. He's a stretch 4. You know, he would basically be another Durant for them. He could do a lot of what Durant does. Obviously not as well, because he'll be just a rookie, but he definitely shoots the 3. I think he runs the floor a lot better than Durant, to be honest with you.
I'm a little disappointed the fact that they traded for Andrew Wiggins. Not because it's Andrew Wiggins, because I was kind of curious to see how Steph and Clay and D'Angelo Russell would have played together, because that would have been pretty incredible to watch those guys play together.
When they signed Russell, I pretty much knew he was a rental until Klay Thompson got better. I didn't really think that they would hold on to him. It was only a 1-year deal anyway, so they ended up trading.
They signed him to a big deal. It was a 5-year deal. What happened was that they didn't want to get rid of Kevin Durant for free, so they convinced D'Angelo Russell to come there. So basically, they did a trade and swap. So they got these guys, they signed their deals, and then they swapped them, basically. So
I thought they only signed him for the 1 year.
No, he's on a 5-year deal. So now that he's in Minnesota, he's still got the 4 years left and $100 million or whatever the hell it is left on his contract. So that's why I was curious to see how those 3 would have fit in, because Steve Kerr can make the most out of 3-guard system. So it would have been unique to watch. I don't think it would have worked, but it would have been unique to watch for sure.
And that's another guy no one talks about. Steve Kerr wins 3 in a row with the Bulls, and the very next year is traded to San Antonio, and he wins 4 in a row, really, because he won in '99 with the Spurs. Then he won in '03 with the Spurs. Then he goes on and wins 3 with the Warriors as a coach. So the guy's got 8 rings.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. And he does a great job of managing players as well, and I think he learned a lot of that from Phil. And I wish they showed a better relationship between him and Phil, because you kind of see it during The Last Dance, but mainly it's really focused on Michael Jordan and everything else around Michael, and not so much Steve Kerr and Phil Jackson, because you heard the amount of respect that Steve Kerr had for Phil Jackson, and it would have been nice to get a little bit into their backstory as well.
Yeah, Steve Kerr was definitely a true student of the game, even though, it's not going to get shown, and he won't get the credit that he definitely deserves for it. He's definitely, I mean, he's I didn't expect him to do anywhere near as well as he has, but I mean, obviously he learned a lot from Phil. Granted, he definitely came into a team that had a pretty good foundation that Mark Jackson put together, because a lot of people forget Mark Jackson is the one who drafted, Steph, Clay, and Draymond. So they were already there and pretty much established. I guess Kerr just basically took them to that next level.
Yeah, you took a team that's winning 45 games and made them win 55, 60 games. So, it's all different in offensive system. Like I said, they run pieces of the triangle. They really dedicated themselves to analytics and dedicated themselves to the 3-ball in a time where everybody's saying that you can't win, because we saw the Phoenix Suns try to win with the 3-ball and they couldn't. So you take a look at the way they did it, and it was incredible the way that they did it. They took the talent that they had, they implement the triangle offense where they get the ball moving and they get cutters and stuff, but they also hit their threes. They get open 3-point shots instead of open mid-range shots that you've seen with the Chicago Bulls. It's just a slight difference of taking a couple of steps back. So I really like what Steve Kerr did with that.
Well, not to mention, not only did he learn from Phil Jackson, but the whole time he's playing for San Antonio, he's playing for Greg Popovich. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if you watch the Warriors, like you said, you see a lot of what Phil implemented in Chicago. You see some of the triangle here and there every now and then, but then you also see the ball movement and the team ball, just like what the Spurs are famous for playing. You know what I mean? So what he's brought to Golden State is a real good mix of what he learned from both Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich, and you could definitely see that in the team play.
I agree. I definitely agree with you on that aspect. He did bring both of them into his game plan for the Warriors, and it's worked out well because they took a chance on Klay Thompson to pair 2 3-point shooters next to each other at point guard and shooting guard when nobody else in the world was thinking of doing that, because, every indication showed that you weren't able to win a championship that way, and they dove deep into analytics like we talked about and decided to go that route, and Steve Kerr just happened to be that perfect complement that they needed to get the most out of this analytic play.
Yeah, definitely.
You got any thoughts left over that you want to get out before we wrap it up?
I mean, there really isn't much to talk about, especially once, this Last Dance is over. There really is no more sports, man. It's going to be hard to find some subjects. But, I finish up with, I'm going away from basketball and what we've talked about here, but Don Shula passed away today at the age of 90, winning as coach in NFL history. Yep. He had the 3rd winningest record in playoff history.
I think he had 19 wins, yep.
Yep, only coach to, coach an undefeated team. That actually won the Super Bowl too as well, 72 Dolphins. So,
Thanks,
rest
Giants.
in peace to Yeah, exactly, right. So yeah, rest in peace to Don Shula, 90 years old. He definitely lived a full life, and from what the reports say, he died comfortably at home around family. So, definitely a fulfilled life, very successful man. Think about it, 90 years old, man. That means he was born in 1930. That's a year after the Great Depression started, bro.
That's insane.
You know what I mean? So this guy has seen, World War II and Vietnam and, any war you could think of, really, besides World War One. Since 1900 anyway. But yeah, so wanted to mention that and throw that in there because he definitely needs to be mentioned, highly respected in his profession by everybody. So yeah, Don Shula passed away at 90 today. So R.I.P. Don Shula, and we'll do our best to come up with subjects to talk about. I guess we're not NASCAR guys, but the only real thing I've seen so far is NASCAR is going to continue.
They had a horse race in Oakland over the weekend.
Yeah, NASCAR is talking about coming back on the 17th with no crowd, which I don't get it. That's just weird to me, man. The crowd is what makes the game go. Momentum and whatever else you want to throw in there, but.
I guess car racing could be one of those things where you're in a car isolated by yourself. So I could understand that. I don't.
Yeah, it's not like you can hear the crowd, right?
Yeah. I don't watch NASCAR, so I don't know how much the crowd gets into it exactly. Yeah, but
exactly.
It's not a factor.
Like I said, there's really not much going on in the sports world. So ESPN the other day was playing cherry pit spitting contests.
What the hell? I guess they're going to play Korean baseball coming soon. So.
Yeah.
But it's going to be on at 1 in the morning, so who's going to watch that?
So, yeah, I just want to let our listeners know, we will definitely try our best to find some sort of material. Maybe we'll do something on, the NFL schedule. They're releasing that, I believe, later this week, I think it is, or next week.
I think it's on Thursday, actually.
Yeah, so we can do something with that, but we'll continue with our analysis on The Last Dance after each episodes on Sunday night. So this Sunday night, episodes 7 and 8, we're getting in the home stretch here. Unfortunately, I don't think 10 episodes is enough, but 9 p.m. on ESPN for those who enjoy foul language, and on ESPN2 for those who don't.
I'm definitely.
But yeah, that'll wrap it up for me.
All right, well, just to feed off of what you were saying, yeah, we'll try to do something on the NFL schedule. There's rumors going on that baseball could start their spring training number 2 somewhere in June and then kick off in July. Basketball, I'm still waiting on. It seems like they're trying to come. They're trying to come back. We'll get into this real quick. I just think LeBron came out the other day talking about how, somebody's giving him rumors that the NBA is going to cancel their season, and he's like, absolutely not, blah, blah, blah. And I just think it's kind of a selfish thing because he realizes this might be the best chance for him to win with the Lakers, and of course he wants the season to come back. So that's just my 2 cents on that part.
LeBron's just mad because the attention isn't on him right now. He'll be all right.
Exactly. So, best chance to win.
He's a diva, bro. He's always been a diva.
Yep, exactly.
That's like me. I've been a Lakers fan my whole life, but I'm torn because I'm far from a LeBron fan. I just don't like the dude as a basketball player. I don't respect anything he's really done in the game. To me, he's a sellout, and he throws teammates under the bus, and he gets coaches fired, and he just doesn't have the mentality. So I'm not a fan of him on the court. Off the court, great role model, great guy, does stuff for the community. But we've already gotten into all that. I'm not going to get into that again. To each his own. There's guys who don't like him. There's the majority of his fan base are 21 and under anyway. So and he tends to act like a teenager a lot of the time. So, but yeah, it's whatever, man. But I think he's just mad because the focus isn't on him right now, and it's too bad, man.
I mean, we're all egotistical, so I don't blame him there. We all have that little egotistical side to him. So I really don't blame him. Sitting at home, no basketball. This was your best chance to win a championship. And what do you see is 10 hours of The Last Dance where, people that may have not forgotten about Michael Jordan, but, never got a glimpse of MJ, the casual fans, it's lifting MJ up when he's not even really playing. So with LeBron sitting on the bench, you have MJ making that rise of, hey, I'm still here, I'm still a GOAT, and LeBron has nothing and can do nothing to combat that. So I think, egos being the way they are, he wants to come back. So I don't blame him there.
Yeah, they would have lost anyway. I think the Clippers would have probably would have took care of them, and if not, I wouldn't have seen them beating someone like Milwaukee in the finals. So. Yeah, that's just my opinion.
That's another story for another day. Maybe we'll get into that, especially if the NBA does come back. We'll try to get into that too. But
I don't see it. I mean, I think that the players should just accept that the NBA season is over. The finals would have been due to have been played in about 3 weeks or so from now, and I just don't see it. It wouldn't make any sense. And they're talking about trying to finish out the rest of the games, then get into a playoff mode. Just not going to happen. You'd be cutting into the beginning of the next season if there is going to be one.
And they already pushed the draft back from June to
it doesn't make sense. They just need to accept that it's over with, man.
Unfortunately, it might be, but you still got The Last Dance. We still got 4 more episodes. You can catch episodes 7 and 8 on ESPN or ESPN2, depending if you have children in the room or not children in the room. So we're going to continue to bring in-depth analysis after the episodes. I like the fact that we did it on Monday today. That works well for me. I think it works well for you. It's fresh in our minds. It's fresh in everybody else's minds. So we're going to probably stick with it next Monday, and we'll bring you the breakdown of episodes 7 and 8 and what we noticed. And, we're in a home stretch, so hopefully we get that good vibe over the next 4 hours of The Last Dance. And one thing to leave you off on, I really liked the fact that at first I didn't because I thought The Last Dance was going to strictly be on 97, 98 Bulls. I like that they've shown you everything from 84
the
to
whole
98.
Journey, yeah.
So I like the fact that they keep bouncing back and forth. I've heard some people say that it's hard to follow along, but I like that journey because it kind of coincides with one another. You had the 93 season and they're getting into the 97, in deep in the 98 season at the same time as they're talking about three-peats.
Well, to me, it's really a docuseries on Jordan and the Bulls because you can't just tell a story about how it ended without telling the whole thing from the beginning. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So I like it. We'll get into it next Monday. Same time. If you want to catch our podcast, Triple H Sports Zone on Facebook. You could catch us, the Capital Region Wise Guys. We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on iHeart now. We're on Google Play. Also a couple other different platforms. But you want to check that out, go to Triple H Sports Zone or triplehsportszone.com. All the information's right there. And we appreciate everybody listening and stay healthy.
Everybody, please. It's I know it's tough and everyone's getting
getting antsy. It's nice out.
That cabin fever or whatever you want to call it, but
going stir crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Not so much you and I, because we've been working through the whole thing, but for a lot of people, But I mean, you can't give up now, man, because they say the numbers are slowly going down, but who really knows what the hell's going on? But we definitely don't want to end up in the same place that we were just a month ago. Everyone just do your best. I mean, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. I just fear that, with the summer coming up, a lot of these people that sat in the house all winter long are just not going to have it. And, it's going to be a bad situation, but, all you can do is hope for the best. So,
yep, we made it this far. We're New York tough. We're going to get through this. And, on the other side, it's going to be worth it. And we'll enjoy the little things more in life. We'll enjoy being able to take a walk and get a ice cream scoop or whatever the case may be. You know, we'll enjoy the little things a lot more. I think if there's a bright side to this, it's that you've learned to appreciate more things in life and not take them for granted. So that's the bright side of it, and we will come out of this tougher than ever.
All right, and watch out for them new murder hornets.
Oh my God. Sounds like something out of
It's
Pokemon.
like a game of Jumanji out here in 2020.
Ridiculous. And there's always something. So yeah, watch out for the murder hornets.
Yeah. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Stay healthy, stay happy, you know, keep in the right state of mind, and until then, stay wise, guys.